Hi guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. This evening we have a very special topic to talk about. My name is Terry Forge, your humble boy from the Ruth. If you've subscribed to this channel already, thank you very much. If not, please subscribe. If you've seen us for the very first time, you are also very welcome. If you are on live and you can hear me, just give me a thumbs up, just so I know someone can hear me as well. Today, guys, we've picked a very interesting topic to talk about. We cannot build a community where every child is struggling with drugs. If a child is struggling with drug misuse, then they will grow into adulthood using drugs. And the question is, what are we building for the future? Or what is it that the future generation is going to look like? If you can hear me, please give me a thumbs up, just so I know my microphone is working, because I'm doing this on the laptop for the first time. I did this on the phone before live, and I was able to hear. But if you can hear me, just give me a thumbs up so I know someone can hear me clearly, just so I can adjust the microphone if you can hear me. Today, yep, I've just left a message to say if anyone can hear me, let them put the thumbs up so I know they are there and they can hear me. If that's possible, can anyone hear me? So today, as I was saying, we're going to talk about drug misuse and how this is affecting our communities. We have a lot of children. Thanks for someone putting the thumbs up to say they can hear me. That's great. We have a lot of children in our communities, both in Africa and in the diaspora, who are suffering from substance misuse. Substance misuse can start at any age. Sometimes children start by taking these drugs recreationally, but as time grows, it becomes an addiction. When I say children are taking drugs recreationally, it's when a child would probably give the fellow mates a joint, and they will say to them, well, it can't cause you any harm. You're just taking this now and again. It's just for fun. Maybe let's just have a drink or two today, and then tomorrow it becomes three or four, and the next day it becomes four or five, and before you know, it becomes a full-blown addiction. We have recreational drugs within our communities, which are very common, such as marijuana, if we look at the African communities, and we have in some other marijuana, if you go to places like Cameroon, you would hear of a 4-4, which are different form of alcohol locally brewed, and no one can quantify the level of alcohol in the level of alcohol in it. If you go to hi there, Mr. Azinu has always You always check in first, and I really appreciate you joining us online today. I was talking about local drugs that are recreational within our community, which we actually take without knowing. So we did mention marijuana, which is very common. I mentioned about Afofo, which is in the Cameroon. We have places such as in Uganda. If you go to countries like Uganda, you will hear most common drugs in Uganda, such as moonshine, and all other communities would have different names that they call different types of alcohol and all different types of drugs that they will normally take recreationally. Other recreational drugs that you would find mainly here in the West, we'll be talking about things like oxycodone, amphetamines, drugs that can at times be prescribed, and some are unprescribed, and they get it from, and children can easily get them from the street. Moving from recreational drugs to addiction, addiction is a very deadly and dangerous thing. You have children in and out of Africa who are addicted to so many drugs. But our major topic and concern today is the most common drug that they're found in our streets, they're found in local pharmacies, they are being sold literally by anyone and everywhere. Recently, there have been lots of documentaries on co the hydrocodone, or the major one that we're talking about is the codeine syrup. So we have the codeine syrup, which in very little dose, this medication can be very therapeutic because it's a cough syrup, and it can be very therapeutic in a very small dose if anyone is taking it for the purpose for which it was prescribed in the first place. But a lot of people have become very addicted to the codeine syrup. The codeine syrup is an opioid based medication, and the opioid effects of these medications are really very addictive. And lots of African youth are now abusing codeine syrup, some without even knowing the impact of it on their health. Every uh, opioid-based medication, which is normally termed as the major one, which is used illicitly, is heroin. They are very highly sedative drugs, and hence why when people take them, they become really very, very sedated, less functional. And you've watched documentaries like the zombies of Nairobi, and you have children who've taken this medication and they can't even walk from point A to B, and they will be falling on their feet. Some will even go cold turkey. What I mean when I say cold turkey is you have children who actually go flat out, overdosing from this medication. The other medication, which is also concerning and very easily accessible, is tramadol. There is a lot of tramadol which is being sold within our African communities. If you move from point A to B home and you ask for tramadol, even sending a little child to go and get you tramadol, they will bring you tramadol. I know very well that there are lots of restrictions which are being put in place to ensure that this medication do not end up on the wrong hands, but this is definitely still happening. And the impact of this medication is really destroying our communities. If you can hear me, you can still put your thumbs up and join us in the comment section just to share your experience and also to share your thoughts on how tramadol, codeine syrup, marijuana, or any other drugs is affecting your community or any close ones that you know. There are a lot of things to look out for, especially on our younger ones or children who they're growing. You starting from your own home, you might have a lot of you might have a child who is growing up from experience and listening to others' experience. They might be saying, "Oh, my son is very quiet, my daughter is very quiet, they are the quiet type. I don't think they can get involved in drugs." No child can be spared from peers' influence. What I want to advise is, if you have a child at home and you see their behavior gradually changing, this is something that you should be very concerned about. It's always good to check who is it that are their peers, where do they go after school, who do they interact with, and ask them, speak to them. What is it that they're doing differently supposed to what they were used to doing before? Um, Addiction is a very terrible thing. If a child start taking drugs today, the aftermath of it is something that is extremely worrying because it will take decades for you to fix it. That's if it can actually be fixed. I must say, I currently work here in the UK as a drug misuse nurse, and I have seen a lot of patient in and out of treatment. The reason they come in and out of treatment is not that they're not doing their best to come off these drugs in the first place. We also have to appreciate that. Hi there, Sharon, and welcome to our live show. If you have anything to support our local communities with drug misuse, please drop it on the comment section, and we can all discuss and support one another. We have a lot of young children who are growing up in our community, and we want the best for them, and that's the only way we can achieve the African dream and or build a more clean and cohabiting community which is free from drugs. As I said, I work here in the UK on the substance misuse service, and I've seen a lot of children coming in and out of the service. It could also be adults, not just children, but we also understand that relapse is part of recovery. When someone is suffering from drug misuse here in the UK or in most in most Western countries, which we have done some study on, they would get support either clinically and or through therapy. I've spoken to most of my friends who are in the clinical fields in some different countries, and I've seen them in some documentaries how substance misuse is perceived in our own African communities, which is slightly different and very concerning. I know very well that someone can narrow it down to say it's the child's choice to take drugs, but what matter is how to get this child out of drugs. I think we all have to have a very positive mindset, trust that we can still get the best out of our children no matter what their circumstances are. We have seen a lot of children in Africa or within our own communities being arrested for taking drugs rather than being supported with therapy. I'm not saying that taking drug is the right thing for any child to do and cannot be punished for it. But what I'm trying to say is, even if a child is arrested with drugs or in possession of drugs with intents to supply, what we should do is we then provide them support wherever this child has been arrested and taken to, if at all, they've been sent to prison for the crime that they feel they have committed. A lot of things attribute to drug misuse, which we must also talk about. We have uh, children who are homeless, we have children who are unemployed, which is the first trigger point for most children in our community or adults in our African community to take drugs. Is the fact that you have a lot of African um, children who they say because they are not employed, they have nothing to do, they probably don't have a home, some don't have parents, they are streetwise. As a result of this, they have nothing else to do than to take drugs which might sedate them and just give them that blackout now and again so they don't remember all their predicaments. These are things that, as a community, as a people, as a government, we have to collectively do to to support the suffering of all these people in our community and help them out of drugs. Children who are not going to school are a massive concern. Children who cannot gain employment after graduation, they are all at risk. And we also have them moving already into adulthood, taking drugs. And when they have children, then it becomes the same circle, life circle. If you have a child, which I was saying before, at home, who you think that their character has changed, who you think that they're not longer doing the things they were supposed to be doing. They're becoming self-neglected. They can't clean their own self. They're becoming sedated, and they're becoming maybe hallucinating. You might have a child just sitting, giggling to themselves or smiling to themselves. These are serious concerns to look out for, and these are things that you should start talking about with your child. You should be speaking to them, asking them what is it that is the problem. Is there anything that they are doing out of the ordinary? Even if it means, I'm not saying you should go around policing your children, but if it means you picking up this child from school unannounced at some point just to see the kind of peers they deal with, who is it that they're interacting with, they will help you find solution to their problems earlier. But I must say, addiction is not something that can be beaten out of a child. So that's something that I'll advise against. It's not about beating a child and telling them, make sure you don't take these drugs again. It's about finding the right therapy for them, making them to understand that drug misuse is something that is definitely not good. And this is a support that is there for you in order for you to strive. I'm happy to take comments. Uh, Happy to take comment from viewers with their experience. Last year, there was a documentary which we were watching in Nigeria, and this documentary was about the journey of a young student who was very brilliant in education, and they went on to use the codeine cough syrup. Right. True, if you watch their journey from when they started using the codeine cough syrup, how their character changed into how they ended up having mental health problems. How is this related? You have people who are suffering from drug-induced psychosis, and they you have people who are suffering from drug-induced psychosis, and they can get support from mental health services. That's if you have mental health services in your community, which is something we can all talk and explore about next time, because unlike in Cameroon, we still have the native system of treatment when it comes to mental health, because we don't have proper mental health hospitals. Um, I must appreciate the few doctors who have trained themselves in mental health across our communities, and especially in Cameroon, and they're doing a brilliant job individually to support people who are suffering from mental health problem, but it is an overall problem that can be looked at as communities, a people, a government, and try to provide the care for their own people who definitely need them. We, as I was saying, you have drug-induced psychosis. So taking drugs can actually lead to mental health problems. We have a lot of young, brilliant children in Africa who have been affected by drugs, especially codeine syrup and tramadol. As I was saying, following that documentary in Nigeria, which I watched, this young guy then become extremely addictive from taking codeine syrup recreationally, and ended up in a drug rehabilitation unit. There are very few drug rehabilitation units across some African countries, but the major problem we have here is the fact that these units are also not well equipped, and there is no alternative therapy that is provided to these children to actually help them come out of the system drug free. We ended up seeing this young man in chains, and because his situation was really sporadic, and they were not able to contain and or support him, they keep chaining him to trees. These are things that are very inhumane. It's not the best way of therapy. I think therapy is about finding alternative medication for what that individual has been taking to support them. I will talk about different types of treatment for drugs shortly, and we also finding various better ways or therapy to also speak to them or give them some activities to do. I think we know this comes with costs, and the question would be who is going to fund them. We know very well that we have a lot of charities around the world who will support people suffering from drug misuse. Us as a community, we should start supporting ourselves, because it's a charity begins at home before looking for charity out of our own continent or out of our own neighborhood. Us as also a government, we should start doing a lot to support our own children, because the government is supposed to be for the people, and the best people to start with, as I said in one of my video, it is better for you to build a brilliant child and then trying to fix um, tens and dozens of already H people, because those little children are the future of tomorrow. And if you make it right for them, then 100% you are making it right, building a better future for that country or as a continent. The young man in Nigeria went through therapy, was ended up released from there, but at the end he benefited nothing and ended up back in the street using drugs again. So there was no pathway from when he started using these drugs. There was no pathway for any support that he could get. And even though he had some support at some point, but this was private institutions and they didn't have enough funding. Hence, after some time, they were led back into the communities. As I said, I've studied and worked here in the UK as a substance misuse specialist. What I was going to say is do a comparative study on looking at this young man in Nigeria, and or looking at any young person who is suffering from drug misuse in our community, and how that is dealt with differently in different parts of the world or in this country in general. Any child who or adult who are suffering from drug misuse problems, these are identified through a lot of therapy, therapy organizations that have been created either by the government, privately, or charities, but most of these organizations are funded by the government, um, because they've realized there's a need, there's a massive need for this to be funded if they want to build a healthier community for everyone. You have people who take a lot of drugs here in the West. So this is not just limited to African community. You also have people from other communities or from the white background or Asian background. Whichever community someone is taking drugs from, they will receive therapy if they feel that there's a need for it. We know very well we can't force anyone into therapy. It is a matter of choice, but at least the option is there and you can ask for that support and you are going to get it. So, the most common drugs that people take here in the West, which are a stronger version of what is used recreationally or maybe addictively in our continent, are heroin. So people take heroin, they take cocaine, they take amphetamines. Um, it could be oxycodone, it could be morphine. There's lots of different medication that they can take, but they're all extreme painkillers or analgesics with medication that they are taking, and this medication tends to be very, very addictive. Some of the medication they can get treatment alternative for them, but some there are no treatment alternative for them. So the drugs that you do not have any treatment alternative for them are things like cocaine, spice. Spice is a new one that came out. It's a PS medication or NPS, non-psychotic medications, and they use them in the streets to get the high, and but they're very, very damaging. So you have marijuana, you have cannabis, and this medication do not have treatment alternative. So it is mostly therapy that people will get, and it will support them in that light. We also then have medications. We have people who take heroin, and we provide alternative treatment or what we refer to as a substitution therapy. So it's like someone taking an antagonist, an agonist, and you're giving them an antagonist to support them. So we have people who take heroin or any opioid-based medication. We can do a urine test to determine exactly what medication that they have taken, and if they are positive to this medication, you can give them alternative treatment such as methadone. There's buprenorphine. We have different other versions of buprenorphine, such as the Espronol or Buvida, which is an injection that can be taken weekly or monthly to also support people who've been misusing these drugs. In Africa, we know funding has always been the problem, but the solution is about starting to identify children early who are using drugs and try as much as we can to support them. Because if we are all only relying on the government to find solution to these problems, then the answer is truly far-fetched. But having said that, we hope we have people here who have influence in the government or in their own local government that they can propose, they can suggest, they can highlight this to their government just to so something can be done to support children with drug addiction. Well, the second thing with what I'm going to talk about now is regulation of medication. We have tramadol, which is being sold left and right, as I said before, in our communities. Who is regulating them? and who is supposed to be policing them. We've heard in many documentaries that lots and lots of children who take drugs also tend to bribe those who are supposed to be policing them, either they are community leaders or the law enforcement officers. And this can only go to fuel their drug misuse, because they know very well that, oh, this is the problem, this is the crime, but um, they know this is a problem, this is my crime, but at the same time, no one is going to do anything about it. And if a child know that no matter how wrong they go, nobody is going to correct them, then they feel that what they're doing is a liberty, and they will definitely take liberty out of it, and they'll continue to do it, except someone is telling them, we think that what you are doing is wrong and you should be doing something differently. We have hundreds and hundreds of children that have been damaged by drug as a result of poor regulations. I was watching a documentary on from Vice on codeine syrup and how they are killing children in Zimbabwe. The most interesting bit is this medication is coming from South Africa. They're saying it's not licensed to be used in Zimbabwe, but it is all over the streets of Zimbabwe. Those who have their hands on it, they will say, we get this medication. We have contacts from SA. If we need this medication, we just have to press the button, call our contact, and this medication will be sent to us through the buses or any other route. How they cross the border, no one know. Do we search? Do we even ask questions where these medications are heading to? It is a very big cartel, a very big industry, multi-million industry. The drug misuse industry or illicit drugs is a multi-billion industry, which a lot of people they've mastered, they invested their money in. But what they're failing to understand down the line is that they are actually destroying lives. If you ask those who sell these drugs to children, what they're going to say to you is, there's nothing else, that I can do. I have my own problems. I know that these drugs are causing these children problems, but I need to solve my own problems. We all know very well that the solution could be targeting to get some of these drug dealers off the street. But no matter how many drug dealers you take off the street, the problem will remain. If you can provide that energy if you can take that energy to provide therapy and free 5, 10 children off that street from using drugs, that's something that you've actually achieved than trying to take 1 or 2 drug dealers out of the street. Because at the end of the day, their starch is somewhere. It might be cease and burn, but there's someone somewhere still farming these starches, and they are there will always be drugs. The problem is, how is it we can, or what is it we can do to support children in our community out of drugs? Right. A big shout out to everyone who has locked in so far and is following us. As I said, I am happy to take comments from anyone who is, and or if you didn't manage to join us live tonight, always leave your comments in the comment section. Share the light on drug misuse in your community. What is it that you are doing or yourself to also support someone who is suffering from drug misuse problems in your community or family? And what has worked and what is it that others can do to support their own family members equally? We have a lot and a lot of elderly people who are in hospital or in rehabilitation units from the most common and destroying drugs that we don't talk about. The most common and destructive drug that has existed in century and all time, which some people that or some of our viewers this point might have had today or maybe still have in front of that at the moment, is alcohol. Alcohol misuse is a very, very, very big thing. We have a lot of family that have been destroyed. Some moved from city to villages because of drinking. Some have had accidents and some have lost their memories still because of alcohol. So when we talk about accidents, we're referring to drink driving, uh, we're referring to careless driving, which have resulted to maybe killing someone or someone ended up dying as a result of this themselves. And I'm talking about people moving from city to villages because they sold everything they had just to fund their addiction or maybe to just to hit the bottle or have a drink. And this become an increasing problem, a very, very increasing problem across the years. We have different types of alcohol that they are brewed differently in every nation. In Cameroon, we have afofo. Afofo is a local made drink with a percentage that cannot be determined by anyone. Unlike unlike the moonshine, which I didn't mention, of Uganda, or any other drink that is been locally brewed, which we can't determine the percentage of it. It is not just the alcohols without which we cannot determine the percentage, or the ones who end up with 50, 60, 70%, which cannot be classified. We're also referring to drinks that they brewed through the brewery and how people become addicted to them. It could also be either whiskey or brandy, beer, any drink that you think there's a need or an urge for you to have one every day. That's now moving from you just wanting a drink to an addiction. And you have to really be very mindful of it. You have people who are coming home, their stomach is empty, they have nothing to eat. They're thinking of, oh, yes, what is it my family is going to eat today? But behind their mind, the little money they have is to have a drink first. So they wouldn't even think about, this drink. They will just go for their drink. While having the drink, then they start thinking, what is it that my family is going to eat today? So alcohol is a massive problem. I talk about memory loss. People can suffer from Korsakoff, which is a mild version of dementia, memory loss, as a result of alcohol. Alcohol withdrawal symptoms are very fatal and they can lead to death. So, for anyone who takes alcohol massively or feels that they are addicted to alcohol, I must not advise you to just wake up the next morning and say, this is it, I'm not going to take any more alcohol when you don't have an alternative therapy for it. What you can do is to start reducing your drinking gradually so that your system can level up the tolerance and gradually wean you off. If you stop drinking straight away or immediately, you can go into severe withdrawal and it might lead to death. It's very concerning when we have children drinking alcohol. We have parents offering their children alcohol, maybe when during dinner or things like that. Or some say, well, if I don't give them this alcohol now, they might go into steal. They might go to steal it. One thing we should always be assertive of is the fact that alcohol is not good for children to start with, because if they try it and they like it, then they're still going to steal it anyway, regardless of you giving them some. They just go for extra. And when they get out there, they'll say to their peers, "Oh, my dad always give me this. I drink it, and there's no problem. It's nice anyway." Then they will try it. Yes, it's nice. Then they will try it again. Yes, I think it's nice. Then before you know, the children become addicted and they grow up as alcoholics. It's something that is very, very concerning within our communities. If you go to any local joint, you will see young, brilliant, energetic African born children who are drinking and singing their life to the grave. Some will say to you, "Oh, I don't think, I don't think there's anything else I can do. The government is this, there's lack of jobs, no one is doing anything to help me." You have to help yourself first. You have to help yourself first. And people who are already caught up in this cycle of addiction, us as a community, we can help them. Anything you can do to support a brother, to support a sister who is suffering from addiction, I'll advise you to do so because it actually means a lot, freeing an individual from their predicament. It means a lot. Alcohol is very, very common in our community. You can even send a child age 2 or 3 to the bar and you'll be sold to them. Which then means if that same child have the means or they've got money from somewhere and go to that bar to say, "My dad has sent me to buy alcohol," it will be sold to them because they're trusting that this child is taking this alcohol to their parent. And it's that trust that is definitely damaging. I think most countries have gone a long way to put age restriction on who is allowed to buy alcohol from the shops. Some countries, they might say from age 18, some countries says age 21, some countries are even going the extreme to the age of 25, and you have to show an ID card if the seller thinks you are underage to buy that alcohol. You have to show your ID just so they can sell you this drink. It doesn't matter how big, tall, and handsome you look like, it do not matter. The person is only trying to do the job. How old are you, sir? Can you evidence this before we sell you this drink? But when we are now in a community where everyone, it's good to have trust. It's good to believe in children who are genuinely saying their parents have sent them to buy something. But what the parents have to be thinking is this the right thing for me to do? Should I actually be sending a child to buy alcohol from the street or to buy me alcohol by the road? We have different alcohol. This alcohol, they're not just available, but they have also very extremely affordable. They've even gone as far as putting alcohol in little or whiskey in very little tiny sachets, which can be very, very affordable. We're talking about in Cameroon currency, you can even buy whiskey as small as 100, 150, 200. Converting this into foreign currencies, we're talking about 10p, 15p, 20p, or any other penny currency that exists around the world. Because of the affordability power of it, this drug can also easily be misused. Alcohol on its own, it's also a drug which people should also look out for. There are alternative therapies for alcohol addiction. It's either you have a substitute therapy, which is always with Librium or chlordiazepam epoxide. That's the medication that would normally be prescribed for someone who is coming off alcohol or has stopped alcohol completely because of the circumstances, they'll be prescribed Librium or chlordiazepam epoxide as a detox regime. For and alternatively, they would they have to have the Librium or chlordiazepam epoxide as a therapy. Then they also have other therapy, such as group discussions, talking about the addictions and their problems, and having just a therapist who can listen to them or maybe give them some work to do, which are distraction techniques, just to stop them from thinking about drinking at all time. There's a lot of psychological effect uh, from drinking and or taking drugs, and anything you can do to support someone with therapy, even if it means just talking to someone about their concerns or maybe referring them to a service that can then help them, is very vital that you do so. Identify these things at early stage and try to support one another. If you have any concern with a family member, someone you know within your community that is suffering from drug misuse, please ask them to seek for help. I know in our community there's a lot of denial. A lot of people will say, God forbid, it is not my portion. I don't think this is this is for us. It's just a trial. It's temptation. We can go down on our knees. We will pray and we will fast. Yes, it's good to believe. And trust me, God intervenes with all who believe in Him. But you also have to be seen doing something. As they say, prayer is the key, but heaven will help people who are also trying to help themselves. Go for therapy. Try to get a substitution medication for the drug that you are taking. And then God will intervene because they can see your effort. It's the major concern here is that a lot of people can not afford because the cost of the alternative medications are sometimes very, very expensive. As I said, here in the West, they are mostly funded by the government because these medications they're very, very expensive. And therapy on its own is also very expensive, which is hence why the government fund them. But you can become a talking therapy to your own family members, to your own friends, to people in your community, just to support them out of drug misuse. I appreciate that a lot of people who are listening to us today are already doing so to either a family member, a friend, or to someone in the community. They're already giving back by giving their time to support someone, or someone must have been to a charity before just to give back to their community. Please, I will encourage everyone to also continue to do so. And for those who are not doing already, please create the time. Don't say, I must have it all before I give back. No, it's not just about material things. Just speaking to someone, advising someone is very essential and crucial. I've seen a lot of young men and women in the streets in our country. Most people will say, oh, this young man is not well, or he's going crazy, or he's crazy because this is what is happening to them. They've offended their grandparent, or they stole someone money and they spoil them, or I think they've just lost the plot. Yes, all these things you're saying might be right, but for me, from experience, I will boil it down to drugs misuse. I know superstition is a very big topic that people will talk about. But if I see someone who is in the street, who is going crazy, as some people will refer to, but to me, I'll say they're struggling with mental health problems, and these problems can be solved if someone look into them, show them love and concern, and try to support them. If we have therapists, we have alternative treatment, we have psychiatric hospitals, we have antipsychotics, which can be prescribed, and have institutions where these people are admitted in, and these medications have been given to them, they can be treated. They can definitely be treated. I speak passionately about this because I did a placement in Cameroon before, where I was trying to uh, do a link placement with mental health in Africa, and I ended up in remote village with mental health beds. Very interesting, and uh, this place was called Pa Langa, and they were the most interesting thing about it was we had patients who were receiving medicine and also uh, traditional medication. I spoke to them. I spoke to many of them. The kind of thing that they feel better from when they came there. Some of them said, well, as much as they haven't taken any prescribed medication, they've been using herbs which have supported them. So there's a lot of evidence to say people can take, traditional medication to get better. But when I spoke to the proprietor of this place, the staff who were working there, there seems to believe that modern medicine actually supports to relieve their suffering the most, and it is the quickest form of treatment compared to the traditional herbs. The herbs are being given with the trust that this is going to help a particular situation, but there are no clinical evidence to back this up. But if you have someone who is suffering from drug-induced psychosis, or they become psychotic, and sometimes they become schizophrenic as a result of this, if they have been given antipsychotic medication, such as clozapine or any other antipsychotic medication, either the atypicals or the current ones like aripiprazole, then this is going to benefit them. It's going to benefit them the most. As I said, these medications are very expensive. So if you have the means and you are able to support people who are suffering from this drug misuse in your community, or someone who has now then developed psychosis as a result of taking drugs, please support them, because funding is always the problem. It's always a problem. So today, guys, starting from the beginning, we've been talking about drug misuse, especially tramadol, and how tramadol is affecting young ones in our community, including the codeine cough syrup. Codeine cough syrups are very common. They're commonly sold in pharmacies in our country. They're commonly sold in the streets. They're in the hands of those who are not supposed to be in their hands. In the first place, these medications were meant for children to take if they had a cough, and adults started abusing them because of the addictive, because they are extremely addictive. Equally, tramadol, it's a painkiller which can equally be used to relieve anyone or suffering from pain. As I said, all these medications, if used correctly and genuinely, they would help you. But if you then tend to abuse them, That's where the problem is. Most medications do not necessarily come from the streets to be abused. Some can be prescribed. You have stories of people who were prescribed oxycodone or oxycontin before, and before you know it, they feel that this medication makes them feel good. They feel that this medication help them sleep a bit more because of their sedative effect, and they introduce it to their family members, or they say to friends, oh, this is exactly how I feel when I take this medication. And then the friends will say, okay, let me also try, or the family will also try. Before you know, lots and lots of people become extremely addictive to this medication, and they're dying from it. If you look at the gun rate in America, um, gun might be killing people in the US, which we've heard from the news, but it doesn't kill people as much as drugs. Drugs is actually one of the highest killer in the United States, in the UK, or also in Europe, and unlike in some African countries, which is underreported. In Africa, you will tend to see people who take drugs in very extreme poor circumstances, or in very extreme poor communities where they feel that there's no hope and there's nothing again for them to do. These are things that we should all be concerned and worry about. Show love to one another, care for each other, make sure that any child is not left behind. We can only build a stronger community or a better future for all if we as a people are supporting one another. I'll give a massive shout out to all who they've joined us tonight. I know it's quite late. It's almost 11 p.m. Lots of people have coming back from work. They're tired. They're sleeping. They're going to catch up on this. I would share the link just so someone can watch, feel inspired, try to support and help someone within the community, and support them the best way that they can. If you know any drug that is being used in your community, whichever, can you please let us know in the comment section? Tell us your experience of this drug and how it's affected someone in your community, and if there's been a solution to that problem. Also, please let us know in the comment section. As I said before, this is an hour stream, so we are almost ahead with time, or we are on time. Just for my closing remark, what I'm going to say is, please show love to one another. If you see someone who says they're selling drugs in your community, please try your best to speak to them, tell them about the negative effect of drugs, the impact of drugs on our youth, the consequences of people taking drugs. And if you know any child or an adult who is taking drug, can you equally speak to them, talk to them about the consequences of drug misuse? How is it that the drug is going to affect them? Tell them how that complete life can be stripped of them as a result of taking these drugs. And if there's any recommendation that you can equally make, please do so. Recommend them to a therapist. If there's any alternative treatment that you can also recommend to them, recommend them to that alternative treatment. Try to support them through their journey, makes them feel that there's hope. Someone is out there that can listen. Someone can definitely support them. If there's a need, if it means you don't have the means, please try to outsource. A lot of charity organizations who can help people who are suffering from drug misuse, and will help to relieve the symptoms. One thing we should never do is feel that, or you see someone who is withdrawing from drugs and then you give them a back tap, or maybe you drag them around to say, what is it that you are doing? Or putting them in the shower to say, wake up from your predicaments or things like that, you're actually making the situation worse for them. Please always remember that if someone is already struggling to breathe in the first place, the last thing you're trying to do, what you should be doing is trying to make them comfortable, not moving them around, because their breathing is only going to get worse. We also have another medication here in the West, which is called naloxone. Naloxone is a blocker. It helps to block the effect of the drug that has been taken. And if someone takes drugs and they have any opioid-based medication and they have the naloxone in them, if you give them that injection, it's going to reverse the effect of that drugs that they've taken and save their life. So this is another thing that if you hear or see or you know about, or you see someone who's taken medication in your community, it does this particular medication, naloxone is an injection, it doesn't cause any harm, give them the injection with the hope that it's going to help them if the medication that they abuse is an opioid-based medication, except especially things like the codeine cough syrup that we are talking about. So those are some of the solutions to help relieve pain and suffering instantly. And this medication would help the individual instantly, as I've said. Thank you all again for tuning in. Thank you all very much for the thumbs up. Thank you all very much for being here with us tonight. I hope that we've inspired someone in their community to continue to believe and supporting people who are suffering from drug and or alcohol misuse, and build a better and safer community for ourselves. If you've not subscribed to this channel already, what are you waiting for? Please subscribe, press that like button, share so someone can get inspired. It is only by solving the little problems that we have within our community that we can build a better Africa for all. We must start by learning and changing our narrative and mindset so there will be a better tomorrow for our children. Thank you guys very much again for tuning in, and until next time, we will see you. You take care. Bye bye.